We do have a quorum, 89 people, actually 80 is quorum, so.
Michael, how are you? Good.
Please rise for the flag. The first motion is to hear the report of the Finance Committee, other town offices and committees, or act on anything relative thereto. The Finance Committee Chair, please.
Good evening. Excuse me. Good evening. Regarding the warrant articles, the Finance Committee takes the following position. For Article 2, the Finance Committee recommends approval. Respectfully submitted, Kevin Kennedy, Michael Marshall, Edwin Coleman, Patrick Jones, Trevor Sansucci, George Graham, and Stephen Consilio. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Chair of the board, please.
The Auburn Select Board makes the following recommendations on Article 2. The Select Board voted to recommend the approval of this article. Submitted Sarah Ruffley, Chair, Daniel Carpenter, Vice Chair, Steve Chambers, Ann Kavanaugh, and Todd Corain.
Thank you. Any other committees? Okay, seeing none. Ms. Goodrich, would you please give us, oh, there is? Hello?
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
Danny Lyons, Precinct 4. I would like to see a town meeting. We'd like to skip the presentation and go right to a vote.
Well, we don't have a motion on the floor yet.
I'll be making a second time, Mr. Moderator.
Okay. So, Ms. Goodrich?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town meeting vote to appropriate $4,600,000 from free cash for the acquisition of a 2.89 acre parcel of land currently owned by BKRJT Incorporated. Property owner operates Chuck Steakhouse, with a principal place of business at 798 Washington Street and 10 Prospect Street, Auburn, Massachusetts, and payment of costs for demolition of the existing building on the property, all necessary engineering, survey, title and title insurance, expenses, all customary closing costs generally related to the purchase of commercial property of similar nature, and any and all other miscellaneous costs associated with the acquisition of the property as deemed necessary and appropriate by the town manager.
Is there a second? There is a second. All right, Mr. Lajes, you wish to make a motion?
Yes, Mr. Moderator. I've already polled the audience, and I'd like to make a motion that we go right to a vote, if that would please the audience and the rest of the town meeting members, instead of the presentation.
Okay, so your motion basically is to vote on this motion immediately.
That's correct, Mr. Moderator.
All right. Is there a second? There is a second. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any debate on the motion?
Mr.
Yes.
Moderator,
Yeah.
Chief Coleman.
Yes.
I would just say that if anyone has questions that they would like answered prior to the vote, we would be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. So I would just throw that out there.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Does anybody have anything? Yes.
Joe Martin, Precinct 2. I just want to know what the chief thinks about this. Are you okay with this? Through the chair.
Well, I want it to pass, so I'm okay with it if it, as long as it passes.
Okay.
I've communicated with town, meeting members. I will just say, we were going to kind of mention this anyway. If for some reason over the last couple of weeks you have not received an email from me, please stop at the town clerk's office because we don't have your email. But I've been communicating with town meeting members. I sent you all the pre-town meeting video. Maybe you've had an opportunity to watch it. So I certainly don't want to belabor the point. We made sure that the pre-town meeting was a little more extensive. That's why it was 90 minutes. Tonight was not going to be 90 minutes. We were going to really try to pare that down to about a half an hour. But again, I encourage questions. I want to ensure that people's questions are answered. So if you have questions, and we do that within the discussion period now that the motion has been seconded and everybody's satisfied, I don't have a problem, skipping the presentation portion. I just can't stress enough that I want to make sure people leave here having their questions answered.
Okay, did I see a hand down? Yes.
John Stencil,
Hi, John.
Precinct 5. I would like to know two things. One is this going to be a nice state-of-the-art facility that's going to last a long time? We're not going to have to redo this in 10 years? And the other question is, can we afford it?
So that's a great question, Mr. Stencil, and that's something that I did want to address tonight. So there's, over the last, I'd say 3 weeks, in various settings, I have heard a number floating around that the proposed project was going to cost. And honestly, like I said, I heard it from 3 different kind of sources. And that number that's floating around is $85 million. That does not even fundamentally make sense, seeing as we abandoned a joint public safety facility that was going to cost $75 million. And somehow we cut the police department out of the project, and then the project grew by $10 million. So that is not the case. I will say to you the same thing that I said at the pre-town meeting last week, that it does not benefit anyone to bring a project to the voters that we do not think has a chance in passing. We understand the economics. We understand, the inflation. We are trying to keep this pencil as sharp as possible. Because again, the price of this project is only going to grow as the years go on. So if we put a project before the voters that we don't think has a chance of passing, it's not going to have much success the following year or the following year after that. So we're going to put, and I said this last week, we're going to put a responsible project forward. I cannot give you a number on what that is going to cost tonight because it would be irresponsible of me to do so because, frankly, I don't know the number. I have some rough ideas in my head based on what we're given for a price per square foot and how many square feet the building is. But there's still costs above and beyond that in terms of architectural fees and other types of things that's kind of the area that I can't predict. So if this passes tonight, the timeline will be, and myself and the police chief, I do want to just show you one thing because I want people to understand. The police chief was on a Zoom call this afternoon with myself and my deputy chief, just kind of hammering out some parking. For those who may not know, this parcel is going to be designed that it will be able to house a future police station down the road. Now, how far that is, we don't know. That's a discussion for a later date. But the purchase of this land is really preparing for the future because this has been our hurdle the past 6 years, trying to find a parcel that we could not only site the fire station, but the joint facility. So we do have this laid out in a plan that someday there will be a portion of this land that's going to be earmarked for a future police building. So what I can tell you, Mr. Stencil, regarding the price is, although I'm not going to give you a number tonight, once I notify the architect tomorrow that it passed, we anticipate to have conceptual designs in 3 weeks. Kind of simultaneously, that's going to be sent out to a professional estimator. That normally takes about 30 days. And once we have the number from the professional estimator, that's the number we will release. But I can tell you that it will be less than half of what the projected cost of the public safety building was going to be. So the number that's floating around that's $75, $85 million for a fire station only, that is a false number. So, we've already cut square footage out of the building. We're getting, and to your point about future growth, ultimately, that's going to depend on the voters. We believe that we will be bringing a project forward that is at the bare minimum of square footage that we've already cut back on. We run the risk that if we continue to cut into that square footage, then we are going to be right back where we were in the situation that we are now, that we did not adequately plan for the future. But people also need to understand that planning for the future, there is an expense to planning for the future. But this project is never going to be, as cheap, if that's, a good word to use, as it is today. It's only going to grow. But you have my word, you have the town administration's word. We've been working hard to make sure that this is a responsible project that will pass, because again, it benefits no one to bring the voters a project that we don't think has a chance. No one wins in that situation.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, we will now have a vote on Mr. Largess's motion. Okay, the vote is over. Now we will see what the vote is. 77 yes, 13 no, and 2 abstentions. Mr. Largess's vote passes. Huh? 77 yes, 13 no, 2 abstention, is that correct? Mr. Largess's vote passes.
Mr. Moderator, the chairman of the Finance Committee just brought something to my attention. I want to make sure that we answered your question. When you asked if we can afford it, were you talking specifically about the station project or this land? Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Kazanovich, do you want to, we'll just kind of go over the free cash balance. Regarding the spending for tonight, we had a free cash balance that was certified in July 1 of a little over $20 million. $1 million of that was appropriated at this past fall town meeting, leaving a free cash balance of about $20,300,000. So the amount requested tonight of $4.6 million, and this is going to cover the demolition, hazardous mitigation, environmental testing, title, insurance, closing, all of those things. We did receive today an estimated demo number that we believe is a little on the high side. We think that when we go out to bid, we believe that that number is going to come down. So the 4.6 number is really kind of a buffer. Any money that is not utilized out of the 4.6 that's authorized tonight will revert automatically back to free cash. So after tonight, if this passes, that will leave an adjusted free cash balance of $15,711,000 $966.81. So, financially, this makes sense to buy it out of money that we have, so we don't have to borrow and pay probably a little over $1 million in interest on this. This was recommended by our bond rating agency. They felt that this was the way to go, and this was the fiscally responsible way to do it instead of borrowing. Mr. Kazanovich, I don't know if you want to address the...
Yeah, look, could I, excuse me, Chief. So Mr. Largess's motion passed, but we still have to vote on the motion as read by Ms. Goodrich.
Mr. Moderator, can I just add one thing to what Chief Coleman had conveyed to our town meeting members? I just want to say, even though we're reducing our free cash is available, and we are saving roughly $1,050,000 by not buying this through bond proceeds. So there is an interest savings to our taxpayers. But we're converting cash into a fixed asset. So that fixed asset does come on the books that has equal value to that of what we're paying, but that will appreciate at the same time. So we're not concerned about a downgrade in our bond rating as a result of using some of our reserves, because we now have a fixed asset on the books that has value to it.
Are there any questions on the motion as read by Ms. Goodrich? Seeing none, we will now have a vote. Is there somebody? Oh, he's got to get it. We got to get it up on the screen so you can vote.
Steve, can you exit out of that? Oh, they, okay.
Okay. Yes. Somebody was waving. Was Dave Doherty's wife waving at us?
Precinct 3. I just have a question of where did that price come up from to pay for Chuck's, for the Chuck's property?
Sure. So when the property went on the market, the Board of Selectmen authorized the town manager to enter into negotiations, and part of that negotiation was we had an independent appraisal done on the property. That independent appraisal came back at $3.9 million. After several offers and counteroffers back and forth, we agreed on a sale price of $4,050,000. So the price of the property is $4,050,000. The remaining is testing, demolition, environmental, tax, title, insurance, all of those things. So the sale price was based off of the independent appraisal.
I just have one more question.
Yes.
How long, if we're not going to do the police department now, and we're not going to be upgrading the fire department at Drury Square, how long is it going to be before we have to spend more money to update the police department and update the fire station at Drury Square? I just see this being an awful lot of money for an awful lot of people that live in a blue-collar town. Just my own opinion.
So if this property is purchased and ultimately town meeting will be asked to vote on the project itself on May 21st, Tuesday, May 21st, which is the town's annual election, if that project passes, that would construct the new fire headquarters on this Prospect Street site. The West Street location would close, and the building would be turned back over to the school department. And then the Auburn Street station would remain open as a fire station. There are, at this time, no major deficiencies or capital improvements that would need to be made to the Auburn Street Fire Station above and beyond what would normally be programmed into our 5-year capital plan. So even things like a roof replacement, those are all things that are built into the capital plan. I've said this from day one 6 years ago. Structurally, speaking of the Auburn Street Station, structurally, the building is in good shape. The building is well maintained. It's a space issue. It's a space issue for employees, for trucks, things like that. But being able to construct the new station, moving some things around, moving administration out of there, it's going to free up space within Auburn Street, and that will be plenty of room for a substation. But right now, we have a roof replacement of the building within our 5-year capital. At some point, the garage floor will need to be refinished. But those are all things that will be done as part of the town's annual capital improvement plan.
Has everybody voted?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Before we close the vote out, I just want to congratulate the chief on all of his efforts to educate the town meeting members by holding the pre-town meeting, the open houses at your fire station, and you kind of took my thunder away because I was going to ask you to turn around as we all applauded you for that vote. Your work was well done.
You think? Okay, turn it off. Okay, the vote. 82 yes, 6 no, 0 abstentions. It's all done. Thank you, folks. I will entertain a motion to dissolve the town meeting.
Thank you very much.